All right, welcome in. Cube Show podcast, college football podcast coming to you on Sundays. And we're going to recap SEC Media Days today. Had some great conversations, a lot of cool interviews, met some new people, met some fun people, got to catch up with some old friends, and it was an absolute blast. So hat tip to Dallas, who I feel like did an excellent job. Came back home with this bad boy right here, ma'am. First cowboy hat that I've ever had. SEC was handing them out. Had to go get one, get the brands on there, keep it going. Feeling pretty good about it. Matter of fact, wife says she loves it. So we're doing some good things here with the cowboy hat. But that's not usually what we go with. You guys know each and every week we are sponsored by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. For those of you not on YouTube, I just showed off the cowboy hat that I got at SEC Media Days. Wickles.com is where you get them. Ask for them in your grocery store. If they don't have them, you should probably just ask why. Why do you not have Wickles Pickles in here? We hear about them. We want them. We want to check those out. Can you please help us? Here's what I want to try to do. So SEC Media Days is very repetitive. It's a lot of the same things with the same people, a lot of folks talking about the same things, talking to the same people and over. But I always feel like there's a few things that slip through the cracks that I just think it would be a cool discussion or something that I want to talk about or something that would be neat to discuss. So I'm going to take you through a couple of those things that I heard that I feel like you should probably be aware of before we head into the actual season. Just like things to sort of think about. Not saying that any of these definitively mean that team's going to win 3 or 4 extra games or lose 3 or 4 extra games, or that aspect of their team is even going to be totally different. Just some things that I picked up on, some things that I like that I think we could have a fun conversation on. And this will be sort of my recap of SEC Media Days. Before we do that, there are a lot of folks that have a problem with something that I released, or I should say that the SEC Network released on my behalf at SEC Media Days. And that was my top 5 offensive lines. I guess the biggest problem are folks that I don't have Alabama in this group, which if you heard the segment with Dusty Dvorak and I, he had Alabama in, I believe, at 5 or 4. And I said, I have no problem with it. I think they easily could be there. I just have some serious questions about some things that other people believe to be strengths. No one in the nation has been more complimentary of Tyler Booker for a longer period of time than I have. He's probably probably my favorite player to watch in college football. But Parker Brailsford was not there for most of the spring. He was kind of in and out. He hadn't practiced a lot with those guys. So there were a couple questions about him coming in anyway. Was he a good player at Washington last year? Yeah, he was pretty good. He's still light. Still not very heavy in the ass, and still a guy that sort of gets pushed around a little bit at times. I don't view him as just coming in day one being a dominant SEC center. Now, working with 2 heavy guards is going to help him out a lot because technically he's very good, strong. The other part is Caden Proctor, which people just automatically assume that this is going to be an upgrade from last year, which it was semi-problematic at times last year. Caden Proctor goes to Iowa, packs up his stuff and leaves, doesn't go through spring ball, packs up his stuff and comes back to Tuscaloosa, doesn't go to spring ball. So the last time he was in pads was January 1, January 1st. Not saying you can't get better, not saying he won't be better. But I do think it's fair to wonder how much better it realistically could be. And is he cut out to be a tackle? Let's take Evan Neal, for example, when he was at Alabama. Evan Neal became a really good he was a really good offensive lineman for a long time. He became a really good tackle when he finally leaned up. He was able to change directions just a little bit better. He got quicker on his feet. His core got more stable. Are some of those things going to happen with Caden Proctor, and are they going to happen this year? I mean, listen, I had multiple meetings with their nutritionist, Amy Bragg, going into the season talking about weight control, and he was somebody that they were really trying to get down. He came in over 370. It's going to be tough to play football at that weight. Now, did I compliment that group last year on never having seen an offensive line with 4 guys over 350? Sure did. Did I say they were best offensive line in college football going into the season? Sure didn't. Thought they'd be better than they were. But now everybody wants to bounce back and say, you told us that was the greatest group ever, and you were wrong. So now the people that think that they're just going to be great this year, they want to shit on my opinion for that group from last year. If I'm not mistaken, that group is heavily responsible for them winning an SEC championship. Right or wrong? Just saying. My top 5 win is this: LSU best tackle tandem in college football. You got a guard, 2 guards that have played and started, a center that could have started last year and has started, I think, 1 or 2 games. He's played a lot of football. Georgia, young center that I've seen play a little bit, going to be solid. Mims kicking out the tackle, a little bit of a challenge maybe. He wasn't strong when he was there, but he's done it before and he's got the frame to do it. Ernest Green's not getting the love at left tackle. I think he's one of the best left tackles returning in college football. Tate Ratledge played a ton at guard. Texas, all 5 guys back, 7 guys that have played coming back. That's a strength for that football team. I think they're pretty damn good. Kelvin Banks going to go in the first round. John Campbell, one of the best left tackles returning in college football, probably going to kick over to right, let Zalance Hurd, monster human being from LSU, who technically still needs to grow, move over to left tackle. Javonte Spraggins needs to cut down the penalties, but he's back at left guard. He's played a lot. Whoever plays right guard, Dwayne Davis, whoever it is going to be fine. And Cooper Mays is one of the best centers in the SEC when he's healthy. Does he have to stay healthy? Yes, he does. Absolutely. Mizzou has most of their group back outside of an offensive tackle where you go steal a starting tackle from Oklahoma and plug him in. The best right tackle in the SEC, maybe in college football, and Armand Membu, who didn't even make first or second team all SEC. So to say that some folks might not really be aware of what some of the other groups have, I understand that. I'm fine with that. But if you're going to have the discussion of who should be where, at least be aware of what the other groups are and what the other groups have. Can Alabama be 2 or 3 at the end of the year on this list? Sure, absolutely. Elijah Pritchett apparently had a good spring. Hadn't seen him play a ton of ball in games. We'll see how it goes. So just a thought there. God forbid I put up my top 5 defensive lines. Y'all might riot if I were to put that out today. All right, a couple things that I want to get into. A couple things that I heard from SEC Media Days. First, I'll tell you about Blue Delta jeans. They are magnificent. If you saw me at Media Days, I had them on. Because they're comfortable, they're stretchy, flexible, breathable, and they're designed just for you. They're cut just for you, and they can do that digitally now. Go to bluedeltajeans.com, check them out, see what they have. You can order those things up right away. They will ship them to you if you need to, or go by right there in Oxford. They'll get you custom fit. They are beautiful. They are wonderful. The only pair of jeans you're ever going to want. bluedeltajeans.com. Tell Nick and the guys you heard about them right here on Cube Show. Okay. Start with Arkansas, because we did an Arkansas spring review last week. And one of the things that we told you was that you would probably expect to see some old school formations, some old school personnel groupings. Like that was going to be a real thing, right? Like that was something that we thought was going to happen and something that we were excited about seeing. Sam Pittman hopped on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning and had this to say about just how old school his offense might be this year.
I guess you could go back to the old I formation because we sure as heck ran it this spring. 21 personnel, rock 'em, stock 'em robots. There's a place for that, and you have to have the personnel to do it. But there's a place for that. You can slow the game down. You can beat people up physically that way.
So there you go, Sam Pittman. I formation in the spring. I love it. 22 personnel, 2 tight ends and 2 backs. Getting downhill a little bit. We told you on that preview last week, Maddox Lassiter, a little bit of an undersized tight end, could be working at old school fullback. And McElroy kind of got talking about this a little bit on our show. And I talked to a couple others, talked to Jacob Hester about it, talked to a few people on defense about it, and started to think about just how odd this would be for a lot of defensive coordinators. Now, are you making a living in this? Are you in this 80% of the time? No. But Pittman saying they're going to embrace the hog there at SEC Media Days. Think about the portions of this that would be different, though. I've talked to multiple defensive coordinators and position coaches in this league that have said, we haven't lined up against I formation. Like some position coaches younger said, never seen it. Literally never lined up their guys against an I formation. Okay, that's one. 2, how about the fact that most of these linebackers in the SEC are living at about 216, 221, 224, 211, 218. Now all of a sudden they're going to be coached up to say, yeah, that guy that's 240 is going to get a 7-yard head start at you, and you have to take him on, shed him, and then attempt to go make the tackle. I don't think they're going to like that a whole lot. Maybe they will, but no guarantees. So as we talk about some of the league kind of coming a little bit full circle, emphasis on rushing the football, formations, personnel groupings that they're going to have. And Arkansas, I think, is going to utilize also probably more of this than maybe we want to think or we want to sort of give them credit for. So I just thought it was interesting that we asked Pitman about it on the show, and he kind of said that and backed up the fact that not only have they been practicing it, but they're going to do it. And if you heard my opinion last week, I think you get more out of Taylor Green with his legs than maybe his arm with Jaquindon Jackson and Rashard Dubinion, who is a little bit more Now you got a little 1-2 punch. And then asked Pitman, too, about Braylon Russell, the 252-pound freshman running back. You bring him in as a hammer a little bit later. You got some options there. Teams haven't seen it. They haven't coached against it. And honestly, right now, might not have the best personnel to defend it right out of the gate. All right, also Texas. Some cool stuff from Steve Sarkisian that I was able to get. Great conversation. Great to sit down with him. Sark, always fun to talk to for different reasons. And I actually asked him about offensive line depth because they have pretty much 2 extra guys that have real playing experience and they could probably plug and go and not miss a beat with. And it made me wonder about how real this might be down the road. This was what Sark said about playing more guys early when I had a chance to catch up with them at SEC Media Days.
To think that we're going to go through this gauntlet of a season and play with 5 linemen all year, probably not realistic. And so we're going to be a lot more aggressive earlier in the season and playing more players, especially even the big guys. Our first game's 2:30 at August 31st in DKR, so it could be a little warm. So we're going to play more players and use a little bit more of a rotation than we have in the past. And I think that depth is going to be critical for us.
So very interesting when I asked Steve Sarkisian there about the depth on the offensive line. And he goes a little bit further in his follow-up of we're going to be more aggressive playing more guys earlier. And I don't think he just meant the offensive line there. So how much of this do we see early in the season? Is this going to be one of the 12-team playoff shifts that we see from a lot of coaches? Instead of waiting until you're up 30, are some of these teams just going to rotate like Jeff Collins used to do at Mississippi State with his defense when he'd send a whole new 11 in? Or are there going to be more positions that you want to try to get those guys groomed a little bit earlier in the year, even if you don't have a comfortable lead? You want to get them in meaningful playing time against big-time opponents, like more guys on that Texas defense coming in against Michigan a little bit early just to see what they have, see what they're all about. And I think you have a little bit of that leeway, that luxury right now, because if you drop a game, it's not the end of the day. You can easily still make the playoffs. And is that part of what you want to get prepared for? Not just having more guys ready, but the depth portion of that. We're going to play more college football games we've ever played this upcoming season. This is going to be the longest college football season of our lives. So I think it's a smart idea. It's obviously something that he's thought about. And it just kind of brought me to the point of how many other guys are actively thinking about this and going into a season planning early on. Let's just say the non-conference season, the preseason, so to speak. They're going to make sure that they get that extra 30, 40% of their roster in that normally wouldn't play unless you're up 20 late in the fourth quarter, some snaps right out of the gate. And you want to rotate them early on. Not only getting those guys reps, but you're saving your other guys for down the road as well. So just some interesting thoughts there from Sark. Had a chance to talk to him on SiriusXM also. And this became an interesting conversation almost by accident. And it made me think, are coordinators or whoever is utilizing the new communication devices with more NFL experience going to have a big advantage going into this season? And this is what Sark had to say about his experience using headsets and calling plays into the quarterback through their helmet who was already on the field.
Well, for us, having the NFL background to it, we're not Lane might be a little different than us because of the tempo that they operate with.
Right.
We have tempo and we use it, and Fozzie knows, like I'll sprinkle it in, and if I feel like it's giving us a little rhythm, we'll go down that road. But we're probably a little more NFL driven,
right?
With formations, motions, shifts, different things, and personnel groupings, and so on and so forth, and checking at the line and things of that nature. And so for us, it does give us a little bit more of that NFL feel, where I can really talk to him and say, hey, we're running X, Y, or Z here. If you see the free safety here, I want to get to this. Yeah. And you can do it that quick, and it's not overbearing on the quarterback. I think that's something that I had to learn way back. In 2004, I was with Norv Turner in Oakland, and Norv was the head coach, play caller, but he didn't like to talk to the quarterback. So he call the play to me.
Right.
And then I had to talk to Rich Gannon.
Yeah.
Rich Gannon was 39 years old. I was 29 years old. And I remember the first couple series, and he came off and he said, "Hey, bro, I don't need all that."
Really, I love hearing what Sark says about the headsets here, because as I've told you guys before, some of my experience with the UFL and the XFL, listening to how this operates, it can become a negative. Now, is it an easier way to get the play in? Yes. Can you distribute the plays a little bit earlier? Absolutely. All of that's of benefit. Now, in the UFL, they can go up to the snap. So that's something can come in really late, and obviously can throw a quarterback's timing and rhythm off, or it can be greatly beneficial. There are going to be coordinators that try to do everything through this headset, and that's not humanly possible. I love how Sark said, listen, I was sending play callers into a guy who was 10 years older than I was. Rich Gannon was 10 years older than him at the time, learning his lesson from that of you don't need to be everything all the time. Quinn Ewers has that experience. And I love, too, how Sark kind of detailed it might be something as easy as say, hey, tell the running back to watch the boundary corner. Or, hey, if that inside linebacker blitzes, we have to slide that protection, go ahead and get the ball out. Or safety rolls down, I like the go ball on the outside. Some of those quick, and he was telling us too, how some of it might not even be quarterback coverage, receiver route related. It could be a run play, and you're saying, hey, make sure he hits that outside hip of the tackle, or make sure he watches the cutback early. They've been leaning front side. Some of those things it can give you a big advantage in little bitty ways, and they're just minute details, but can be very important for some of these teams. And I just think this communication process in the helmets, we hadn't spent much time talking about it, but because I've been around it in a couple of different ways, and then hearing how Sark talked about it in his NFL experience, that actually could be a massive advantage. So you think of a Bobby Petrino and kind of what he had to do, how he had to do it. Is that example for him? Sark actually used Matt Ryan as another example. I didn't have to give Matt Ryan everything. Give him the play, get out of the way, maybe 1-2 little hints here and there, but just kind of stay out of his way because he was a pro and he knew how to handle everything. Some of these coaches are going to be trying to force kids to see what they see, and they're not going to see it. And then they're going to stop and try and see it that way, and it's going to cause more commotion and more confusion. So I'm interested to see, like Lane Kiffin's a guy that I don't think he's going to want to tell Jaxson Dart everything, but can he give Jaxson Dart a small, quick example of something he sees that maybe he doesn't that's really important? Yes. And it's like, boom, you throw it in quick, because Lane's not overly talkative in those instances anyway. So he has that NFL experience also. Advantage Lane Kiffin. So it's something that I had not thought about in that way that I kind of took away from SEC Media Days that I thought was pretty cool and pretty interesting. So let's stay on offense and talk some of the other offensive things that I learned. I talked to Kentucky head coach Mark Stoops and asked him about Bush Hamden's offense and just kind of what he expects, and maybe for folks who haven't watched Boise recently, what it's going to look like.
You're going to see a lot of carryover, obviously. Football plays are football plays. How you dress them up, how you move them, what motions you have, right. The actions off of that. The presentation changes, I think, but you're going to see a lot of things that carry over, some things that are new. I think the big thing that I'm excited about is the tempo. Not that we're trying to go ultra fast like some of these schools in the SEC that can snap it with 30 seconds on a play clock, but the last couple of years I was a bit frustrated when it was constantly getting down to 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds left on the play clock, and that was for a variety of reasons. Nobody's to blame, but there's just that operation. I didn't like. You know what I mean? And to me, certainly there were moments when that needed to improve. There could be games when you're down a couple scores. It's maybe not 2-minute offense, but you need to get the tempo going, and we struggled with that. And hopefully it'll get us in a rhythm and get us more plays. I feel like we have more playmakers, and with more plays, we could distribute the ball more.
All right, so that was my conversation with Mark Stoops, and interesting that he uses sort of the presentation analogy, which is what my guy Jordan Rogers has been going against A&M with for the last few years. You have to change up what people are looking at, and you have to change up how people see it. And this is all part of the evolution of offense, some of which is coming back full circle like we talked about, some of which is continuing to move forward, but just in different ways. Everybody is so good across the board these days, and with the portal, you get more experience and guys who have seen more. You can't just go out there and run plays. You can't do it. You can't, like Stoops said, football plays are football plays. Like you see inside zone, it's inside zone. you add a splitter to it where the tight end comes flat across the line of scrimmage, he freezes those linebackers' eyes. That's big. Or if those linebackers are jumping it, you RPO off of it, you throw it to your tight end over the top, or you hit that slant coming in behind them. That's big. So it's one thing that like a Kirby Moore does extremely well at Missouri. You watch him. Watch Sark at Texas. He does it extremely well. Motion-based matchup offense is what you get from Sark. These guys that are moving their pieces around all the time, causing visual deception and eye violations, are going to have massive advantages. And then the tempo part of that too, I think is important to hear from Stoops. One, as he stated, he doesn't want the play clock to be down to 3-2. Those are going to end up being penalties at some point in time that you're not going to be able to get back, and you're shooting yourself in the foot. Also, a quarterback who may not be elite at diagnosing things or getting through those progressions yet, how do you make it easier on him? Speed it up. Because you go fast, you go tempo, you can't get all that other shit in. So it's going to be 1-2, here, there, go. It's going to be ball gets out or keep ball run. I mean, you're simplifying everything by going fast at times. And like Stoops says, you might get down a little bit late. You don't want to go 2-minute offense, but you want to be able to pick up that pace just a little bit. A couple interesting things there from Mark Stoops just on Bush Hamden's offense, how it's going to look the way it is and why that was important to him to bring it in this upcoming season. Also, an offense that I love, and it's Tim Beck's offense coming into Nashville. Caught up with Clark Lea, Vanderbilt head coach. He sat down with McElroy and Cubelic in the morning and had this to say just kind of about how he describes his offense that he's going to be running this upcoming season.
It's the art of keeping the ball in play. And I think I was talking to Diego about this the other day. Just I see it. I see his style of play show up in our pass shell. You know, like you say, take what the offense gives you or defense gives you. That's exactly what it is. It's knowing where to go with the ball when you need an escape. And then the run elements, you know, this was the number 14 rush offense in the country last year. And they did it in ways, again, it wasn't like they're reading the edge with the quarterback and having Diego outrun people. I mean, they found ways to create extra gaps with the quarterback run. They did it formationally. They did it with motions. And those are the things that we have to have, right? We got too stagnant. In fact, there was a study we did on unbalanced formations from a year ago, and in our league, I think we were second to last in the number of unbalanced formations we used. Well, we're not creating an advantage if we're not doing things like that to try to outnumber, to create a gap, and those are the things they pay attention to. So
the unbalanced formations part is also something that I'm really interested there from Clark Lea. This goes back to Dan Mullen and why he had success against Alabama. This goes back to Josh Heupel and the success he had against Alabama a couple of years ago. I've talked to Pete Golding about the difficulty of being able to defend these things. And now there are two ways to go unbalanced. And when we talk about Sark, we talk about Bush Hamden, we talk about Coach Freeze and kind of some of the stuff that he does. Bobby Petrino might give you a little bit more of it now than he used to. But these guys who move their pieces around and use sort of flex players, whether it's offensive linemen as tight ends, fullbacks, or tight ends that can split out wide, running backs that can split out wide, your hybrid players, they're going to give you these unbalanced formations at times. So it can be, you know, a tackle over an extra offensive lineman on one side, but also you can be unbalanced with tight ends and receivers. You go two tight ends to a side. You go 3-by-1, three wide receivers to one side, one to the other side. Those are unbalanced formations in different ways. These are the things, along with the presentation portion of it, that Clark Lea talked about and Mark Stoops talked about, that just keep people on their heels. And when I talked to Lane Kiffin about the communication stuff, he voted against it originally because he said he didn't want the defense to have any advantage whatsoever versus what he was trying to do. And essentially saying, I'm confident enough in what I'm calling that I don't want them to make any last-minute check that might give them a little bit of an advantage. And I think that's what he's talking about right there. The unbalanced looks, the different formations, different people in different places. It all comes down to presentation, as Mark Stoops said. And it's just hearing that from Clark Lea, a defensive mind, studying that offense. Why was it so difficult? Unbalanced formations. Then he has the self-awareness to look at his offense. Whatever he said, third to last in the league in unbalanced formations that they ran, oh, well, maybe that's one reason we're not having enough success. So how tough they are to defend from Clark Lea and why you want to do them offensively there from Clark Lea. Just a little bit more on his offense, kind of some of the hows and whys. Couple of individual things that I thought, like individually based. Talked to Kalen DeBoer on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Had a chance to catch up with him a little bit offset. Also, you probably heard the jab that Coach Saban took at me, the double agent thing. Yeah, that came out again. If you missed that, Michael Casagrande videoed that. Here's Coach Saban dropping the double agent on me with him walking up to the set with Kalen DeBoer. But more interesting was Kalen DeBoer when he sat down with McElroy and I, and we asked him about his receiving core. First off, he said Jeremy Bernard is faster and leaner than he's ever been. But then also Kendrick Law, if we're looking for a breakout player from Alabama this year, Kendrick Law, wide receiver, who had 15 catches, 135 pounds last year, but did carry the ball, had some jet sweeps, a couple other things that he did. I loved how he used to get after it in blocking. Like he would attack guys. This is what Kalen DeBoer says about Kendrick Law.
You know, a guy like Kendrick Law, you know, shoot, the guy can run like no other. I feel like he's just really grown in his consistency catching the football here from the spring into the summer. And, you know, he hit 23.6 miles an hour in workouts. And so he can absolutely fly. And so, you know, on top of being a 450-pound bench guy, he's kind of got it all. And so he just goes about his business, works hard, is continuing to lead that position group. There's
23.1 miles per hour? Is that what he said? And a 450-pound bench for a wide receiver? Like if the receivers got a 300-pound bench in my day, that was eye-opening. Wow. So, yeah, freakishly, and listen, I know this doesn't always work out. I mean, we've got an Olympic hurdler that's playing receiver in the league. That it doesn't mean that he's going to lead the league in receptions, but those are some wow numbers from Kendrick Law, some holy shit numbers from Kendrick Law. So I didn't know that it was all that. I really didn't. I knew he had a ton of potential and they're excited about him, but didn't necessarily know that that's what we were getting there. Another individual guy was what I heard from Texas A&M, and this one came from Billy Lucci talking to Shamar Turner at the podium. Shamar Turner said he's gained 30 pounds and he's 300 pounds. He's walking around 300 right now. And then when you see him at media days, it's like there's no way that this young man looks like he's 300 pounds. So now he can live inside where they were going to move him. But I talked to Elko on set, and he said, no, we're going to move him around. He'll play inside. He'll play outside. We just feel better now that he can hold up more inside. Not that that was ever a big issue anyway, but if you're not always going to move him, there are going to be points and times that he's got to hold the line of scrimmage and be able to strike and shed, and he should be able to do that now. I thought he was one of the elite game wreckers in the SEC and all of college football to begin with, and he's added that and it's pretty much all been muscle, and the lean mass is the same. Whew. Watch out for Shamar Turner this year is all I'm saying. If you don't know the name, you probably need to get to know it, and he's somebody that has a chance to be dominant this upcoming season. Finally, had a chance to talk to South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer. Great conversation. Two different things. One, I said you guys would probably be mad if I drop my top 5 defensive lines. South Carolina would be on it right now, and it's because they have something that not a lot of teams in this league have, and that would be a defensive tackle depth. Ask Shane Beamer about whether or not they're going to be able to lean on that group. This is my conversation with Shane.
No, I really like that group. We bring back our top 4 guys from last season, Nick Barrett, TJ Sanders, Boogie Huntley, Tonka Hemingway. And then we've added some transfers that have come in. Monkel Goodwine from Alabama, DeAndre Jules from Pittsburgh. They're athletic. They're disruptive. You did our games last season. Part of our issue last year was we got worn down on the defense. Those guys had to play about every play, and that's not going to be the case this year. We can roll guys through, keep them fresh, and those are some of the things I talked to Tonka and Boogie about last year was I'm going to get you some help, where you don't have to play 50 plays a game, and that's what we've done, and that's where it all starts up front on defense.
So you heard the names, TJ Sanders, Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Huntley, Nick Barrett. They've all been there. You bring in DeAndre Jules from Pitt. You bring in Monkel Goodwine from Alabama. Maybe they get a little extra run from those guys. They can go bigger, move some different guys around, do some different things. Sanders, Hemingway, and Huntley, 18 tackles for loss last year, 30 total in their careers. So they have played. They've been active. TJ Sanders was playing great towards the end of last year. Boogie Huntley's played great at times for this defense. And I think you get a Gilbert Edmond in, and he's going to be somebody off the edge. A Kyle Kennard from Georgia Tech. Edmond back from Florida State, was at South Carolina earlier. I think it's a top 5 defensive line in the league. And then their versatility in the secondary is going to allow them to do even more with that group. So maybe don't sleep on the South Carolina defense. Shane was really confident when talking about that group. I really think it's a group that could surprise some people and be pretty good this upcoming season. So the other thing that I asked Shane about was the role of Robbie Ashford, because I guess some folks are unaware if he's actually going to be a quarterback. Is he going to be sort of a gimmick guy? Ask Shane, just what is Robbie Ashford going to be in your offense?
What I told Robbie is what I told you guys or the media publicly is just I said Lenoris is the starter coming out of the spring. It's his job to continue to hang on to that. It's Robbie's job to continue to compete to try and be the starter. And we'll see how it all shakes out. But Robbie's going to have a role. No matter what happens in game one, Robbie's a guy that we can win football games with and confident that he's going to help us in a lot of ways this year.
So there's Robbie Ashford, your number 2 quarterback going in. Lenoris Sellers is going to be the guy. However, I mean, Shane's made it clear they're going to run Lenoris Sellers. Like that's not going to be something that I think that they shy away from. It's not going to be something that they're scared of. And if you're going to do that, you got to have somebody else who's going to be ready. Robbie Ashford has experience in this league. He's played in this league. He understands it. He gets it. So he does give you a little bit more of a dynamic, explosive play threat with his legs. So even then, you heard Shane Beamer say Robbie's going to have a role. At different points in time, I expect you to see him in the game just as a bit of a changeup, force you to defend the perimeter just a little bit more, and be a guy that can add some explosiveness and maybe give you that big play capability at the quarterback position. So those were some of my big takeaways from SEC Media Days, where I did get this hat. And just wanted to share a couple of those with you because I thought they were pretty cool. I thought they were pretty interesting. One more for you that I've got. I forgot this one. I wrote these down right here. If you didn't see that, it's a long list. I did 18 different interviews at SEC Media Days. Texags, Sports Talk Mississippi, Sports Call, Dog Nation, Mike Griffith, The Ticket in Dallas, a Houston radio station. I did Oklahoma City, Sports Animal. I did some Texas football podcast, Feinbaum, Locked on SEC. All these, I listened to a lot of these. A lot of these guys are great. And one thing that I took away from, not one person asked me about Jarquez Hunter. Nobody. Not a single one. Now, next week, Josh Payton and I are going to sit down and compare and contrast our takeaways from SEC Media Days and Big Ten Media Days, since he's going to be there. We'll ask each other about each. But Jarquez Hunter has 2,170 career rushing yards, 6.2 per carry. That's leading per carry average among active rushers in the SEC. He's also the leading returning rusher from last year. And Randall Cobb talked about his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and how much more dangerous that could be. 47 catches, 403 yards, 3 touchdowns in his career. I asked Hugh Freeze just about some of the folks sleeping, I guess, on Jarquez Hunter.
Truthfully, that's fine with me, but I think Jarquez, God willing, he stays healthy. I think he's going to have a really, really explosive year for us, and we want to run the football, and he's got the talent to have explosive runs, but also to get those dirty 3 yards when we need them. And I like that room in particular anyway, with Damari and Cobb behind him. But he's the bell cow of it.
All right, so that was from a little sit down that I had with Hugh Freeze, and you can see, hey, we're fine if folks don't know exactly what Jarquez is all about, what he can do, what he's capable of. And it's an aspect of this Auburn football team that I don't feel like anybody's talking about, and I don't feel like anybody is really aware of. So I wanted to share with you a little, because and also a lot of other intelligent football people that I spoke to, when I brought him up, they would kind of light up and say, "Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about him. Didn't think about that. Oh yeah, we definitely need to start considering what he has been and what he is." So just a sort of interesting takeaway there from SEC Media Days, that not a lot of people are putting a lot of emphasis on what Jarquez Hunter is or could be for Auburn this upcoming season. Also had a chance to catch up with Ole Miss quarterback Jaxson Dart, just talking individual personnel for certain teams. And a guy kind of like Jarquez Hunter that I think some folks are forgetting is Juice Wells. Now, I told you guys going into last year, I thought he was the best receiver in the league. Go put the Georgia film on from last year before he gets hurt. You'll see kind of what he is 2 years ago. Just an absolute monster, and obviously put up big numbers at JMU. But ask Jaxson Dart, like, kind of what is this guy? Where is he? And this is what the Ole Miss quarterback had to say.
Yeah, he's a monster. I think that's the perfect way to describe him. Whether it's just him being in the training room, he attacks everything the exact same way, and he's super intense and very intentional on what he wants to excel at this year. And I think a lot of people forget how good he was, and so he's ready to remind everybody this season. And I couldn't be more happier to have him on my side, and he's going to be that guy that adds another element to our offense. I don't think that we have another guy like him. And I think, he's going to do tremendous things this year, and he's going to put his name right back on the map where he was before.
So there you go, Jaxson Dart, monster, mismatch nightmare. Glad he's on my team. Just going a little bit further to kind of emphasize what he could mean to that offense. And I love hearing Dart say, we don't have anything else like him. And think about all the other weapons that Ole Miss has. A lot of good pieces. And he says they don't have anything else like what Juice Wells is. And I asked him when we were done, we were kind of walking away. I said, yeah, I was told by some of the guys in the Carolina facility that he came in, and part of the reason they brought him in was to elevate the other guys, and he was going so far that he was almost pushing the other guys out in a good way. And Jaxson kind of laughed, and he said, that's the perfect way to describe him. Like, that's what he is. So very complimentary of Juice Wells, just kind of giving you an idea of what he sees and what he could be for Ole Miss this upcoming season. I think some of us kind of knew that, but it's in the back of a lot of people's brains, and we haven't really been thinking about just how important he could be for that Ole Miss football team this season. It was great seeing everybody at Media Days. Had an awesome time. If you missed Texags, That SEC podcast, Mike Griffin on Dog Nation, go check all those out because they were a lot of fun. And enjoyed being with everybody. I appreciate everybody asking me to come on. And I appreciate everybody that came on McElroy and I show also, because that was a bunch of you. But yeah, just a couple of little tidbits I took away that I wanted to focus in on and kind of see just exactly what you guys thought about it. Leave it in the comments if you think I'm right, I'm wrong, I'm off on some of those. If you want to go back to the top 5 offensive lines, you can continue to try to shed me like some of these Alabama folks are. I don't care because I know what I've watched. So we'll be back next week. Like I said, going to sit down with Josh next week. Didn't get to really catch up and do anything on camera. He was very consumed with the new Twisters movie and didn't want to get in the way of that and didn't want to distract that. But every time I ran into him, that's what he wanted to talk about. And I had to tell him, I don't give a rip about the new Twisters movie. And I think that hurt his feelings. And as we all know, his feelings are easily hurt. So we'll try to make up for that next week. Please go like, subscribe, YouTube. If you're there, Apple Podcast, Spotify, give us that 5-star review if you can. We always appreciate that. And we'll be back next week.